the front page of the NBA section on ESPN.com. A picture from a game that shows Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Looks like they're talking with the headline in front of it. There's no trust the process. What's next for the Phoenix Suns? A story written by Tim McMahon about 8 hours ago. That was sort of a preview, I think, of what this summer might look like for the Phoenix Suns. If you haven't read the story, we're going to give you some of the cliff notes, but I highly recommend you head on over to ESPN.com and read the story because quoted in this piece, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, Mat Ishbia, and in all honesty, this is our first glimpse. We have on this program, other radio programs, podcasts, print media, we've speculated on what the summer might look like. We've speculated on Kevin Durant getting traded, moving on from Devin Booker or not moving on from Devin Booker, moving on from Coach Bud or running it back with Coach Bud another year, making changes in the front office. We speculated on all of these things. Truthfully, my opinion doesn't matter. Producer Dylan's opinion doesn't matter. Other radio hosts doesn't matter. The only opinion that matters in all of this is the owner of the team who makes these decisions. So when I see quotes from Mat Ishbia talking about the future of the Phoenix Suns, I printed it out. I will show the YouTube audience. I printed out the story, and I'm highlighting stuff. I'm underlining. I'm blocking off quotes. This is something we got to talk about on the show because this is our roadmap. This is it. If you want a quick understanding of what we might be in for this summer, this story gives it to us. What does Mat Ishbia think about this team as it stands right now? Quote, I still believe in our team. I still believe in Coach Budenholzer. I believe in the guys we have. And at the same time, at the end of the season, if we don't get to where we expect to get to, I'll have enough data and evidence that it didn't work or it did work, and then we'll make decisions based on that. End quote. Okay. So now we're starting to see the door open there. That quote opens the door. Still believe in the team. Still believe in Coach Bud. There's an owner who's not giving up on the season. There's 16-plus games to go. I don't know exactly when Tim McMahon talked to Mat Ishbia for this story, where it fell on the calendar, but there's 16 games to go. He's still putting faith in the team, not giving up just yet, but left the door open. At the end of the year, we're going to evaluate everything. And then he went on to say, it's been a disappointing year, very disappointed. Quote, there's not a person in the organization that doesn't feel that way. We had high expectations. We felt really good about where we were going into the season, and we've not met any of those expectations. We've been well below what we all expected, and it's not anything close. So you're starting to see somebody who's, again, leaving the door open. This should give you a renewed confidence, right? You hear this? Okay. Mat Ishbia, the guy who's at the center of all this, the guy who's going to make all these decisions. Okay. We're disappointed. Right? There's some worry out there that they might just run it back. There's some worry out there that Mat Ishbia isn't going to see the forest through the trees here and be able to make these tough decisions. But these quotes, he's disappointed. He understands the frustration, leaving the door open to make changes. All good. And then there's this quote. And it's kind of a throwaway quote in the story, but I don't know. There was something about it that just bothered me. And maybe it's just confidence, but I don't know. When I see quote, if we get in the playoffs, I don't think we're an easy out for anybody, end quote. Have you been watching the team, Matt? Have you been watching this basketball team? I laid out the math earlier this week. They have to win 2 games in a row. Let's just, for a brief moment, pretend that everything is sunshine and rainbows, and this team is the 10 seed in the Western Conference play-in tournament. Can you imagine it for just a second? The Phoenix Suns actually do what they need to do over these final 16 games, and they get into the play-in tournament. They clear the very, very low bar of being one of the 20 teams that gets invited to be in the NBA playoffs. They're the 10 seed. They then need to win 2 games against teams with winning records. Do you know the last time this team did that? November 30th, December 3rd. Less than 20 games into the season across the NBA. That's the last time they did that. That's the last time that they won back-to-back games. They had a 2-game winning streak in which they beat teams with winning records. That's what they would have to do to get out of the play-in tournament. Yet, I've got the owner saying, I don't think we're an easy out for anybody. Are you kidding me, Matt? Guess what? Everybody's thrilled if they play you. Oklahoma City would jump for joy that the Phoenix Suns are their first-round matchup. This group, so far, 0 playoff wins. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, 0 playoff wins since the three of them came together. That's it. 0. Got swept last year. Probably not going to make the playoffs at all this year. 0 playoff wins, 1 playoff series since Durant has come here in which you've won. That's it. Now, Mat Ishbia said something very important in this story. He referred to a, quote, pivot and reload. We on this program have referred to it as a retool, but we'll use Mat Ishbia's phrase, a pivot and a reload around Devin Booker. And then one Sun source in the story, quote, for better or worse, there's no trust the process to Mat Ishbia. Now, that is an awesome thing to hear. Why do I say that that is an awesome thing to hear? Because Mat Ishbia spent a lot of money on this team. Spent a lot of money. Going to spend $450+ million on the salaries and the luxury tax this year, after spending a lot of money the year before. If it doesn't work, sometimes you'll have an owner who comes in, and Ishbia talked about the new owner syndrome that he knows is a kind of a thought about him since he got to Phoenix. But you have an owner that comes in, spends all this money, and it doesn't work, and then they pull back. They pull the reins back. They then get afraid. They then go to the other end of the spectrum where they're just worried about, I'm not going into the first apron. I'm not going into the second apron. All these moves were a mistake. I'm not going to do that. He's saying, this Sun source is saying, there's going to be no trust the process. There's going to be no tanking. There's going to be no rebuild process. And Mat Ishbia talked about this. Quote, it's surprising to me that other people, other fans, they actually like the rebuild process. Like, oh, let's rebuild it. Are you crazy? You think I'm going to go for 7 years and try to get there? You enjoy the 20, 30 draft picks that we have holding? I want to try to see the game today. I want us to win today, and we're going to try. That's good. You worry about what moves that might look like because the Bradley Beal move didn't work out. The Kevin Durant deal didn't work out. You have to make the right moves. You have to pick the right players. You have to build the right roster. There's a growing process there, but I do like hearing from Mat Ishbia that he is not afraid to go right back into this water. Story also pointed out Devin Booker is not requesting a trade. Not going to go anywhere, wants to be here, wants to be a part of one franchise for the rest of his career. So that's another nugget in this story. But this is our first glimpse into the thought process behind the owner that is going to determine all of this. This is the owner that is going to determine if there's a new front office next year. This is the owner that is going to decide what they're going to get back in a Kevin Durant trade and whether or not they want to pursue that path. If they're going to get a new coach, if there's changes in the front office, he's going to be involved in all of this. Now, he pushed back on how involved he is. And he used Ryan Dunn as an example. That the guys in charge came to him and said, I want to draft Ryan Dunn. And Mat Ishbia was like, all right, if you scouted Ryan Dunn, that's who you want? Like, let's go. Let's make it happen. He didn't make suggestions on who to draft, and so he kind of pushed back on the meddling nature of him. But this story, parts of it get me excited about what this summer is going to look like. Because, again, this is the most important man this summer for the Phoenix Suns. This is the guy that controls all the cards. There's part of this that gets me excited about the summer. There's part of this that gets me excited of this failed. This was a mess. But it's not going to deter Mat Ishbia from making big moves, making big splashes in the future. That is encouraging. But then there's also some worrying signs in here, some of the quotes that I read to you that tell me a story of somebody who maybe didn't fully learn his lesson and maybe isn't fully comprehending exactly what went wrong here. That's the other edge of the sword. That's the other side of this coin. Because if Mat Ishbia continues to make moves like Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant and didn't learn from the mistakes that they made in putting that roster together, then it doesn't matter that you have an owner that's going to spend all that money. You have to use it correctly. But Mat Ishbia not shying away from saying, I'm going to give my guys all of the resources in the world. I am going to give them the money, the investment that is required to build a winner, and I'm not doing no trust the process, no file the timeline nonsense. I almost said a word you couldn't say on the radio right there. He's not involved in any of that. He doesn't want that. Maybe a soft reload is the word he used. We've said retool, but we're not blowing this up. We're not stripping it down to the studs. We are going to forge ahead with the resources that we've had in the past. So again, some quotes in there good. Some in there concern me. The most important man telling you point blank, we are not tearing this completely down. We are not going to commit ourselves to losing for 5 or 7 years and stockpiling draft picks. It's not happening. You can look at that as a good thing, and you can look at that as maybe concerning when they have to trade Kevin Durant and they want to get something back in return. You can look at it both ways. I am choosing right now to read this entire story and say, you know what? This might be a guy who's starting to get it. This might be a guy who is going to be able to put together a winner. And he's going to learn from these mistakes, and the next version of the Phoenix Suns is going to be better. And that by going through this, they're going to get to the other side, and things are going to be okay. I'm choosing to take an optimistic look at this story. But if you want to read the whole thing, it's over on ESPN.com.